Hello, just wanted to do a chill video today, just a little sketchbook spread of some foliage, bushes, trees, things like that, as I want to start doing some simple backgrounds and paintings. So I first started with just some very simple brush strokes of very simple foliage that could be used just to add a little extra decoration to the background, something that would be seen as far away, not in focus, no detail really. So I just thought I could do a quick spread so that I can get used to the brush strokes and to also have them in my sketchbook if I ever want to use them. You will see me here really struggle with painting on the left side. I was trying not to cover the camera up with my hand too much, but yeah, that angle painting really struggle with. So I started off with just some fern shapes, leafy shapes, anything that I thought could give the effect of foliage. So here I am with the grasses, and I'm thinking I could mix and match these in paintings as long as I have a couple under my belt. I wanted to have lots of different shapes that I could pick and choose from when I do use them in the background, to give the illusion that the background is full without too much detail and repetitiveness. Here I am trying to do a different shaped leaf. I'm not 100% sure on this one, I just wanted something a bit fuller, but I think it's too blobby. But also this is just a good exercise for me to get used to my brush strokes and, you know, putting pressure on the brush when not to. It's a nice little warm up. It would be a good warm up before I did do any wash paintings. I feel like this is the one where I started to get the hang of using my brush to create different leaf shapes in a simple, easy manner. So here I wanted to try something a bit bigger and do it as if it was a bush in the background. I have to say I didn't really know what I was doing here. So I just started with a simple bush, almost cloud-like shape, and filled that in with a base coat. And then my plan was to go around the outside with like little leafy strokes to try and make the bush look slightly more detailed and realistic. So once that was done, I decided to try and add some shadow to the bush. I decided to paint almost as if the light was coming from the top right hand side, and then I almost in my head tried to imagine the bush was in sections, so I tried to put some shadow around those sections. This was all just rough and to try and get some sort of process in my head. My approach to this varies as I go along. But for the first part I just wanted to add some shadow to try and get some sort of depth within the bush itself, still keeping it very simple, stylised. So then now I wanted to go in and add some highlights to the bush. So I put this roughly wherever there wasn't shadow, still allowing some of that base green to poke through, in the hope that it would create some sort of depth or the illusion of depth when you would look at it as a background piece. And then finally I went in with my last highlight. So in my head this was just going to be purely where the sun was hitting, so I just sort of kept it to those top right hand corners of my little sections I had created. This is when I realised that maybe I should have been a bit more thoughtful with how I was creating these dashes. I'd sort of just been poking the brush so it had created blobs more than leafy shapes. I think if I'd been a bit more thoughtful and mindful of creating the leaf shapes, which I do later on, it gives a much nicer effect. And then I just wanted to add a bit of paint to make it look like the bush was on some grass. Nothing, not adding any sort of detail here, just trying to give it some sort of grounding. And then, as I thought I could possibly save it with more highlights, and then in the end I go in and add some red dots as if it was berries, trying to add a bit more to it. I think what helped it the most at this stage though was these extra leafy dashes. Here I was a little more mindful of how I was using the brush. But here is my first bush. I then thought I'll try trees and do some background trees. I wanted to do two different styles. I have no idea what these trees or what this type of tree would be called. But I sort of wanted to use the same methodology but try and translate it to a tree, as I thought that would be a bush in a tree. It's very similar in my head, so I thought it would work to just use the same process but basically add a trunk. So again I started with my base colour and then went to add some shadow to the bottom of all of these. I tried to imagine the same light source as I had for the bush, just to keep things easy and simple for me. So yeah, added in the light source, and now at the moment these are still very cloud-like. I did slightly change up my technique here and try to do more strokes rather than blobs, just to see what sort of effect that gives. If anything, I think it gives it a cloud-like appearance. Maybe not the best for trees, but I think for clouds there's just a little C curve almost. It's quite a nice effect. Sadly, my phone just stopped recording for the rest of it. I didn't really do much to the first tree apart from add the trunk, but then I tried to do a tree that was more like a bush, and here is where I was a bit more thoughtful with how I was holding my paintbrush and what strokes I was doing, and tried to make them a little more leafy and a little more blended and overlapping with each shade of green, and I think it gives a much nicer effect. These aren't realistic by any means, but I think it gives them a better illusion of depth and leaves overlapping when you compare it to the bush. The same principle and process, but just how I've been putting the paint down with the brush has changed, and I think it's a much nicer effect. And yeah, so in this little quick sketch process for the day, I think this was like 15 minutes of sketching. I felt like I'd already improved on my bushes, trees painting. And then to finish it off, I just added a very, very simple trunk. I didn't put much effort or thought into this. I just added a tiny bit of shading just to make it look like it wasn't just stuck on top. But that was about it. The main focus of this, just to try and improve my foliage, and I can see an improvement. It's by no means perfect, but I've definitely learnt a couple things from this quick little sketch art practice, and I had fun doing so. So thank you so much for watching, painting along with me. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and if you would like to subscribe, comment, that would be really appreciated. Thank you.